Hello and welcome back to Who Espresso, and today we're going to be reviewing the fifth and penultimate chapter of Doctor Who Flux, the survivors of said Flux, and spoilers ahead essentially. This isn't going to be as long as normal, I don't think, mainly because I'm unwell and I don't think I could talk for 20 minutes, so I know I label these as rambling reviews, but this is probably going to be more rambling than normal, just a heads up. But yeah, let's get into the video and discuss this episode. So right off the bat, I think this probably is my personal least favourite episode of this series. Not to say that it's a bad episode, I just didn't find it as enjoyable as the other ones. I think it's very lore heavy, and I don't think it combines itself with the actual other plots in the story very well. Personally, as well, not badly, but just not as well, I think, is the best way to describe it. It's still very well written. I think it feels just a bit underwhelming after last week more than I think. I loved last week so much. But there is a lot in here to enjoy. We finally start getting some answers about the Doctor's past, only for them to be frustratingly snatched away from us at the end of the episode. There were a lot of elements that I think were underused in this episode, and I think that particularly now that with only one episode left, I am starting to worry that it might not all come together in the way that I would like it to, in the sense that I don't think it's going to be as rounded as I would like it to be and to actually feel finished properly, because I just think there's so much left to talk about, or that's gone unsaid at this point, or not told to us, revealed, that I don't know how you could fit it in the 60-minute running time that is the next episode next week. Like, there's a lot in this episode, and this was only 50 minutes. I'd argue this episode needed longer. I think this could have benefited from the extra 6 minutes that last week got, or indeed this could have just benefited from being longer anyway. I don't know. It just felt too short, and it felt like a lot of elements were rushed and glossed over. There's a lot of things I forgot about halfway through. Like, I forgot that Belle was in this story at all. Until she popped up, and likewise I'd forget about Carvinista until he popped up again, and Vinda and Diane pops up, and I'm just like, oh yeah, you guys are still in the story, and I'm like, oh okay, so you guys popping up left, right and centre. And I like these characters, I really do. I just felt like they were popping out of nowhere, and like all at once, it kind of just felt like they were all being glossed over, particularly Diane. She kind of just pops up and says, oh yeah, you got a gun, I'm going to take some revenge on these people, and it kind of just feels like a set of moves in a chessboard of getting everyone together for the finale, which you just didn't, like. If you think of another episode I can think of that might describe like this is of the Stolen Earth, where all the companions are got together in the same place, and that leads into the following episode. And I just don't think it's done to that level. It just feels like there's so much to rush into in this episode that it barely gets a chance to breathe, pacing wise. There are some really fun moments though. That's enough for the negativity, I think. It's getting a bit deep, but yeah, I think that's my main complaint, is that there's just so many elements that it's hard to juggle them. I just don't think it was balanced very well, and that it needed to be longer. And yeah, there are just so many elements that are glossed over. Like Swarm and Azure have not really been prevalent in the last two episodes, and they kind of just pop up a couple of times, and we don't really know what's going on with them. So that's going to have to be explained next week. And you've got all the stuff with the Division that's all going to... I mean, there's a lot of stuff the Division we did get answers to. We found out why they were formed and how they started. And we found out who Orsok was, who was actually Tecteun, which was a good reveal, if somewhat predictable. But it was not... I mean, I didn't predict it, to be fair, but I think a lot of people had kind of predicted it. It was a nice twist all the same. But I just thought they could have maybe done more with it before she gets killed at the end. I mean, I was half expecting her to turn into one of the Ravagers, because they prolonged her sort of, I don't know how to describe it, ashing at the end of the episode. And then, of course, the cliffhanger is that Jodie's about to get ashed, which I don't believe for 1 minute because she's in the next time trailer. But that's the nature of a Doctor Who cliffhanger, I guess, more than anything. But yeah, Spawn and Azure in particular were very much glossed over as villains in this episode. Likewise, who else was... Belle, Carvanista were all glossed over, Diane, Vinda. There was no mid-credit sequence this episode, which makes last week's one feel even more out of nowhere. If I was to predict another one, I'd predict that there'd be one at the end of next week to lead into the New Year's Day special, now that they've done it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they just didn't, to be honest, do it again. But yeah, so those are all the people that I just sort of glossed over. The things I did like, because this is getting depressing, as I mentioned about 2 minutes ago. Things I did like, I really loved the moment with Yaz and the pre-recorded message. I thought that was really sweet. And Thasmin is definitely real. If she does not profess her love to the Doctor at the end of the series, I'm going to be disappointed. Because they are so obviously, like, saying so many... that Yaz has feelings for the Doctor, that it's literally obvious at this point. She just needs to say it. It's not hard, you know? I mean, it's like that bit where she's like, I miss you, and then she says, I miss you back. I said it would be awkward if you hadn't said, I miss you back. And that was like a really lovely moment for Yaz, I thought. And then, so yeah, she takes charge in this episode. She continues that Doctor-like vibe, which we got off her in the first episode, the Halloween Apocalypse, where she was leading Dan and telling him all about this life that they lead together. So it was nice in that respect. It was nice to get some answers about the Joseph Williamson tagline. I do kind of feel that had especially been glossed over in previous episodes, just like popping up here and there. So it's nice to finally get some answers about these different doorways, and I'm curious to see what will happen with the doorways in this next episode. It kind of has this sort of, I don't know how to describe it. It kind of gave me this sort of ultimate faux vibe in terms of set design. I don't often talk about the score, but I thought the score was pretty good in this one. There were some nice moments with the score. I keep meaning to talk about it because I forgot about it last week. I bring it up this week to compensate more than anything, because the music for last week was really, really good. I loved the music last week. So I just wanted to have that in there, because the music throughout the series has been really good. I just haven't really mentioned it, so I wanted to say now more than anything. But yeah, that was a fun little time to have Joseph Williamson and build on that character a bit, which was nice. And of course, let's talk more about the plot, where they're just sort of roaming around the Earth, which gave me sort of very Indiana Jones vibes, particularly with the sort of the montage sequence where they're looking at the maps and the sort of red line goes across, which, I mean, I think it was a reference to Indiana Jones, but I'm basing this off the fact that they kind of referenced it in Tintin, the movie. And I've actually seen Tintin, the movie. I haven't really seen that many Indiana Jones movies, but I seem to recall both being a thing in those movies. So it's a nice little montage all the same. And yeah, as I said, it's nice to see Yaz take control. There was a great line she had about, she said that this pretty girl can look after herself. It's these two that you have to worry about, which I thought was really funny, because obviously at the start of the episode we see Dan fall into the crypt type thing in Mexico, and then of course we had Professor Stasis Jericho do the same thing, which I thought was funny. I love Jericho. Professor Jericho is really great. I love the bit where they go to the... what's it called? The mountain in somewhere or other that I think they set a Doctor Who story in before, the Abominable Snowman. But I'm not feeling very well, as I mentioned at the start, so I can't really remember. But I thought the priest person they went to go meet there was really funny. The hermit guy, I think they didn't really say much about him. I thought that was a really nice little location with all the sort of lanterns, and I think they were lanterns, or were they flags? I haven't really watched it, so it could be anything. But he was really funny. I loved his joke about teasing people and how they should have brought up a newspaper or a Conan Doyle novel for him. I thought that was really funny. But yeah, I think it was just really great. I think that was the best part of this episode, the sort of B-plot with Yaz, Dan and Eustachius Jericho. I thought they made a really great team. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, why didn't they do a spin-off series with Eustachius Jericho? And I'd actually really like that. I don't think it'll happen. But I thought particularly if we had a team of, like, if Dan, Yaz and Jericho are left behind, I think they make a great spin-off team because they really have a Torchwood vibe to them. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the Ood, of course. I loved seeing the Ood again. They were one of the things going into the series I was glad to see in the trailer. I loved that Tech Taeyoon was just sort of chilling with this Ood in this sort of boundary thing. Oh, that's another thing we didn't really talk about, is this sort of the idea that I think a lot of people saw coming is this multiverse thing, and it was nice to see them sort of build up the multiverse idea. I mean, I knew this series was heading for a Loki type approach from the very beginning, to be honest. And, I mean, it was very obvious with them setting up all the multi-strands and everything. So it was interesting to see that get paid off. I do kind of think we're heading towards this universe literally just ending, and the Doctor and everyone, probably just the Doctor, maybe going off into another universe by herself at the end of the series, maybe the centenary, or maybe the specials are about try to get the companions home, or to find them a new home. I don't know, we'll see. But I do kind of feel like we're heading towards a centenary special where the Doctor leaves our universe behind in search of answers about her past, maybe. Because I know Tech Taeyoon mentions, oh yeah, you could go to the next universe has Where I Found You, like the portal thing. I was half expecting someone to come through the portal in this episode and maybe say, oh, we're your real parents or whatever. I do think that will be something that needs to get explained, is who their real parents are. And I think it will probably be Bella and Vinda. I mean, Bella and Vinda have really been, particularly in this episode, were really underused. And Vinda was set up as such a big character, but he's only really had a big role in episode 3, and these 2 episodes he's just sort of popped up. So I'm finding it hard to believe that it's all going to get wrapped up in time. But yeah, and the other big thing we haven't talked about is, of course, Unit, the Unit B plot, and the Corporal Lethbridge Stewart reference, which was, you know, amazing. And it was nice to see the old Unit house with the Unit sign from the 70s. It was so, it's like a nostalgia fest if you're a Unit fan, which I'm not personally, but I did love seeing Kate again, because while I don't necessarily connect as much with the Unit from the 70s, I know a lot of people might know this and a lot of people aren't going to like me for saying it, but I'm not a big fan of the Third Doctor era. So while I liked seeing all the references to the 70s era with all that, it wasn't really my bag of tea as such. I mean, I still liked seeing it was nice to spot. But what really got me going was seeing Kate again and her referencing Osgood, who I hope turns up. I'm not sure she will, but I hope she does. I really would love that. Osgood is the character I relate to the most in the Doctor Who universe. We're both asthmatic, so it's one thing that always stuck out to me when she first appeared. She was a character I could identify with. Right down to the fact that I now wear a scarf from the Fuzzy, just like she did in Day of the Doctor. So yeah, I'd love to see Osgood again. I mentioned that last week. But Kate was really great here. I loved how she stood up to the Grand Serpent. I like how we subtly saw people getting killed off by this serpent creature. That was a really gruesome sort of way of killing people. I also love the fact that it was in his spine, which was really chilling as well. And it was nice to see the sort of history of Unit, because I don't think it's really been touched on that much. So it was interesting. Even if the 70s Unit thing isn't my bag as such, it was still fun to watch and get a little bit of history to the Unit foundation. And it was great, as I mentioned before, when I saw the trailer and we saw the shot of the house from the Forest of the Dead. I thought that was nice. So yeah, the cliffhanger is obviously Swarm arriving with Azure at the end of the episode, threatening the Doctor, and they've now got the fob watch, which contains all her past. Obviously the Weeping Angel as well. That's another thing I really like, the opening shot with the Doctor and in this sort of forest of weeping angels. One thing I will say is I didn't think that the sort of using the voice of the character was as effective when they used it with Jodie. I just thought it was a bit... I mean, Jodie's really fun and lovable, so I just don't necessarily buy her being a bit of creepy, evil voice, personally. It's more to do with the kind of character I'm used to hearing her play, so it was just a bit... It just wasn't as effective as it was with Jericho, who had an established darker side, when, of course, Claire was, like, having her, I don't know, psychic experience at the start of the episode, where he said, oh yeah, I'll help you, but only in a bit, you know. So yeah, he's got an established darker side, and Joe just didn't have that, essentially. But yeah, overall, it was just a bit of an episode for me, personally. I thought it was pretty good, to be honest. It was still a very good episode. I just felt like it slightly dipped in quality from the rest of the series. I mean, War of the Sontarans I found more rewatchable since it's aired. I wasn't as warm to it when it first aired as I am now, but I think this one is kind of just it feels like it's setting up a lot of questions, even though it answers a lot about the division and obviously Tecteun and what the idea of the Flux is to destroy the universe because of the Doctor. I mean, it answers all those questions, but it kind of like questions like, what's going to happen next? What's all this stuff with Swarm and Azure? And it's just, we still don't know anything about the Doctor's past or how many lives she's had. It just kind of feels like, is there really time to do this? So, yeah, it's just a lot in 50 minutes, is what I'll say. And my throat is getting very dry, so I'm just going to leave it at a 7, maybe a warm 6.5 out of 10, and hope the next week is good. So, yeah, thanks for watching and putting up with me being sick. I don't know how bad this is going to turn out, but it exists, and at least I got my review out. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you leave your thoughts on the survivors of the Flux down below, and thank you for watching.